Hello, Sarah Baker.
Hi, Anne.
Hi.
Right.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say how amazing is it that episode 2 was so successful and how much people really resonated with the laughter. I don't know about you, but I got so many messages saying I looked crazy in the middle of like Asda or in the middle of my car, laughing at that bit, which I love because, I kind of feel like we got the message across, but people actually had a laugh in the meantime.
They did, and one of my my family members caused themselves an injury because they had the phone up when they were listening to the podcast, dropped it on the nose and nearly gave themselves a black eye because they were laughing that much.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah. Well, that really is an achievement. Yeah, that really is an achievement. So I think that I'm excited for the next episode where we're going to be then talking about shame and distorting emotions, which is a little bit of a flip, but hopefully we'll bring some of the laughter and joy that we had in the last session.
I have no doubt we will.
Me too. Today's episode is sponsored by LMS Decorators. Based in the northwest of the UK, covering areas such as Skelmersdale, Ormskirk, Southport and beyond, including Liverpool. And jobs include interior work, exterior work, plumbing, tiling, and lots of other types of jobs. Rob, who runs the organisation, is amazing. He's clean and tidy and does a thorough job. And I can say that personally because I've used Rob to decorate my home. And if you want to contact Rob, he can be found on 07754 497 058 and you won't be disappointed. So Sarah Baker.
Hi, Queen.
Hi. Today we're talking about shame and distorting emotions, which I think is a really interesting subject because this comes up a lot in my coaching practice where people often think they feel a certain thing, but when you dig down, it's actually something else. So, is it helpful for me to give a little bit of a definition about what shame is?
I think so.
Brilliant. Okay, so shame is a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behaviour. So listening to that, when we think about shame, that kind of makes it really obvious, doesn't it? But actually, what we know is that shame is something that people often aren't aware of. So I'm wondering, what's your experiences of shame personally or professionally? What kind of can you share?
I think that there are a lot of things that I can share, to be honest. I think one of them, I'm working with a young person, early 20s at the moment, and they grew up highly anxious, really like dysregulated, fearful of life, fearful of people, fearful of showing them their true selves. And they've got to a place now where, they've got, a nice life, nice job, lovely partner. But when those people aren't around and they're on their own, they're chronically like empty and lonely and sad, and they don't quite understand why. And they struggle when they're out with people, almost like they shut down when they're around people because they fear what they will be perceived as. Yeah. They feel that, if I show that part of myself, people might not like it. Or if I show that, no, I don't want to show that because I'll feel embarrassed. I'll feel humiliated if I show that. So over their life, to protect themselves, what they've been doing is just shutting parts of themselves down and trying to mould to the crowd around them. Yeah. And now naturally we do that as a survival instinct, as you know, to fit in because we're pack animals, aren't we? We fear being ostracised from the group.
We're definitely pack animals.
We absolutely are.
Yes.
And obviously you've got to find your pack and choose your pack, but until then you survive, don't you, until you can. And I think that's what this person's been doing, and it's when there is no one around, they're chronically empty and sad and lonely, and it's really hard for them to accept themselves because they dislike more about themselves than they like, and it's all deep-rooted in shame of who they are, shame of if I show that part of myself that might not be liked. And then because of that, people around them make comments such as, oh, you're in your own world and you're this and you're that, and mock and and this person's like really, really, really struggling with anxiety and depression because of this deep-rooted shame that they just can't seem to shake off.
Yeah. And I think that this brings me nicely on to something that people have presented with in my practice before now. And one of the things that is really misunderstood, you've heard, haven't you, of people going, oh, you need to go to anger management, or people like kind of being directed in that way because they're so angry and things are going on. And we kind of go, that person's an angry person. Now, I've got to say, in all the years that I've been doing this work, very rarely has the real emotion been anger. When I really work with someone at a deep level, accept them and understand them, what we tend to find is there's humiliation and there's shame, and there's this repetitive cycle. So I was talking to a client where they were saying, I behave in this way, I then react and respond in this way, and I get really angry. And then what happens is other people's response to that anger is then shaming responses. So the person continues on this kind of relentless cycle of, I behave badly, but then I feel badly because people think badly, and they never jump out of that shame cycle. But what we have to do, and what I work with people with, is to understand, where is it coming from? What's the basis of that emotion? And quite often, and I've told people this funny story before, not that long ago, when I was at a petrol station and I was on my mobile phone, because I don't believe that mobile phones make petrol stations blow up. I'm not having it. So I'm on my mobile phone. Anyway, the woman shouts over the tannoy, can lady at pump number 6 put that phone down? Well, I was fuming. So I threw my phone in the car, stormed in like an idiot, and started going, oh, happy with yourself, are you? Happy, kicking off in the Tesco. And they were all just looking at me, and I was like making more of a show of myself, but I was fuming. Anyway, finished what I was doing, and at one point I think I got something on my hands, like petrol, and I was like, see, I bet you wish I'd set myself on fire now, wouldn't you? And got really, really ridiculous, and then stormed out. And then as I was driving, I thought, what was that about? And I was really angry. Now, what actually happened was, it is a funny story, because I was like, you're a life coach. What are you doing? Like, why are you talking to people like that? Anyway, the basis of it was, I was humiliated. She called me out in front of a full kind of petrol station.
Yeah.
And my gut reaction was humiliation. But because I didn't recognise it as humiliation, my psychology, which we'll talk about as well, which deny, distort, make it fit, was like flip, and it went to anger. So the output was anger. So it would be very easy to look upon that funny situation that's now funny and think that I was just an angry person, but actually it was the inner child, the kind of humiliation of being kind of told off in front of everybody. For the people in Tesco Wigan, I did ring back up and apologise, and I think that was the right thing to do. I did that quite quickly, because as soon as self-awareness kicked in. But it's important to let people know that even as coaches and therapists, we don't get it right all of the time. But actually what really happened was, I worked through it quicker. I understood the emotion quicker. Yeah. But in the immediate moment, we want to deny, distort, make it fit. And that's not a conscious choice. That's something that our psychology has adapted, right?
Yeah, and if we feel humiliated, full of shame, and we don't want to acknowledge that, or we don't understand that that's what it is. Anger is a protective emotion, so we want to protect ourselves. We get into the place of defence, don't we? Fight, flight, freeze, you fight mode.
Yeah.
You think, how dare you, and you want to shut that person down. And it's a way in which to stop and shut down the situation. It's a way of controlling the situation best you can. So that's a real natural response, isn't it? If you don't understand what is actually going on for you.
Yeah, right. And I've said this before, like sometimes listeners, I have to go, what would Sarah Baker do in this situation? Because, you're the calm to my other side. And to be fair, these outbursts don't happen often, or they don't happen very often these days. But actually, they're still there. And what it shows you is that you haven't always got control of what you think, your body is doing. And I imagine for a lot of people that they feel the same, and they start doing all this good work on themselves, and then they mess it up because they do something, and then they kind of go, oh, well, you see, look, I can't be that sort of person, and they give up on that personal development, or that self-awareness, or that change that they're trying to make happen, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing is, what you need to know and what you need to remember is, this is a journey, it's not a destination, and you've got to just keep trying each time, and you've got to kind of not fear failure as much, because failure isn't the end, and the only way you fail is if you do give up.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's like something to kind of like try and embed into yourself, that in those moments what you are is just a human being.
Yeah. And I want to talk about misdirected shame as well, because I think for many years I felt like a bad child, like I was naughty and bad, and I was bad in school, and I was pretty misbehaved, like, you know, obviously
I couldn't imagine that whatsoever.
Pretending to faint in the toilet from last episode, I don't think that was bad. But you know, I really did struggle with authority. So a teacher would tell me what to do, and I think, where have you earned the right to tell me what to do? And I was really much in fight mode. I was never in kind of like freeze or fawn. I was always like fight. And why do you think you can tell me that? And so I grew up and spent many years. And I also had a friend who she'd say she was the nice one and I was the bad one, Evil Emma.
Wow.
And
It's a title.
Yeah, and I took it with me for a while, and I kind of like, it was only really in my 30s that I addressed it and thought, you know, what is this about, this kind of like underlying belief that you're bad? Really interestingly, and I'm going somewhere with this, is that I always thought that my parents thought I was bad and that I was naughty. Now, when I've spoken to them in later years, they were like, no, you weren't really that bad. It's not as bad as you're saying. So it got me thinking about, well, why did I feel like that then? So if my parents didn't think that, how did I kind of get that as a child? And there's two things, or maybe more than two, but the first one is obviously coming from a domestic abuse background, which was up until, you know, the age of 7, and that was difficult, wasn't it? But we escaped that, so that's great. But then the other thing was, actually, it was some of the people we were surrounded by as young children, like the horrible babysitter, or, you know, because there's people who influence, aren't there, who kind of create shame in children, and it's transferred shame. And what I realised doing my social work qualification and carrying on with my family therapy courses is that actually, you know, it's not necessarily our families that cause us to have the shame or the difficulties as we grow up. It's the other people around. And when you think of some of the, I don't know whether you had any dickheads surrounded in your life, but I certainly had a few, yeah. And the sort of bullshit things that they'd say. And, you know, and when I think back, I think absolutely that makes sense. But we don't then understand that as children. And we don't understand it as adults until we do the work. And it's only when I started looking at it going, well, I remember this person, actually they were mean.
Yeah.
They were a mean person. And they weren't mean in front of my parents. Of course they weren't. But they were mean behind the scenes. And actually, there was a few of them who were just not particularly nice or didn't like children, but had jobs in children. You know what I mean?
Teachers. You know, honestly, I completely, I'm with you there. I absolutely hated school. I was an anxious kid. And a lot was going on at home, which again, I've previously spoke about. And when I remember I must have been in about, I think I was in year 5, so 3rd year juniors. And so our setup at home, as you know, was my brother Paul was in a wheelchair and went to a different school to us, and he would get picked up by a school bus in the morning. Now, naturally, in the morning, there's traffic, there's lots of different pickups and drop-offs and what have you that they've got to do. So they would sometimes be late. And my junior school was over like a main road, and I had 2 younger siblings. So I wasn't like a child who would go to school on their own. We had to wait for my parents to take us. And a lot of the time we were late because whenever Paul's school bus would come. And I absolutely hated it, but that was just...
Because it was so exposing when you turn up late.
I just wanted to just blend into the background. And I remember I had this teacher, and she used to make a snarky comment every day I was late. But my mum had been to the school, she spoke to the headmaster, and she'd said, listen, this is just unavoidable. Dad works nights some weeks or earlys, like there's only one of us around, so we've got to wait for the bus and we've got to take you. So this one particular day, our Paul was ill. So he was off school. So naturally we was anxious, you know, because Paul wasn't feeling very well and what have you. And we got taken to school and we were on time. I think like Nan or someone had come to take care of Paul. So as I walked into the class, this wonderful teacher made the whole class, what a bitch, made the whole class stand up and give me a round of applause to be on time.
No way.
Yeah, whooping noises made them all cheer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right, and I was mortified, and naturally I do you know what? I actually remember, as I've said before, like I struggled to cry in front of people. I swallowed those tears down because I could not show that vulnerable side. And what I must have been about 8, is it? And I just remember thinking, you've got no idea what my life's like, and you're doing this to me.
Wowza,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And it was horrendous. And I was in freeze mode the whole day. I couldn't function. I don't have a clue what was said that day. I couldn't get out of that moment. You know, and you just hold your body. I got home and I was distraught. My mum went up to school. The teacher wouldn't even come to speak to me mum.
We had some twat teachers, didn't we, in
Horrible,
our era?
aren't they?
I remember, and you know what? I wasn't going to name and shame him, but Mr. Bellis, also known as Mr. Bellend.
I was just about to say that sounds very apt.
I'm sure he was a lovely guy to all those that know him. However, like I remember, like I've got nasal issues. Like I sneeze randomly at times, and I remember sneezing in the class and thinking, "Oh shit!" Like I've literally just so I had my hands on my face, and he's like, "Emma, no, pull your hands down right now," and like made me remove my hands. So as a teenage girl, like you know, when I should have just been able to leave the classroom discreetly, he then exposed what probably was a snotty face, and how embarrassing. Well, it's disgusting, isn't it? And I think that you know, I talk to a lot of people who say that school was a massive influence on their development, how they kind of then moulded themselves, right? And actually, it's got a lot to answer for. And there's so many things back then, isn't there? I mean, I'm a bit older than you, but at the same time, like you wouldn't get away with it now, would you? Humiliate, clapping someone for coming into the classroom
when they already knew, like they've been told, like that's just bizarre. I don't get it.
Yeah.
She was a mean person, and I remember in my senior school another time I was there was another teacher, and she I asked someone for help, the girl next to me, because I wasn't present in my body or mind in school. I was just an anxious mess.
Yeah.
And I'd done everything I could to survive just to get home.
Yeah.
And I think at the age of 14, I read about my brother's condition, because that was when you get the internet in the house and stuff.
Yeah.
And I read about his condition, and I knew a lot more information that I probably not should have known, but was discussing with the adults around me. Yeah. So I'd read, he doesn't have a long life expectancy, he doesn't. So I'm carrying this around thinking, shit, my brother's going to die soon.
Yeah.
On my own, never told another person. So as you can imagine, like I was, doing all I can just to function day by day.
Yeah.
And I remember at that age, when I was about 14, this teacher, I was asking this kid next to me, what did she say then? Because I didn't hear it properly. And she stood me up with 2 other people in the class, and in front of the class said, "You're going to amount to nothing."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You aren't going to amount to anything.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And another time, my mum had to bounce up to school again. And that teacher went off for a good few months after that. She must have got a right bollocking.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Isn't that terrible?
It is. And I wonder, there's probably a lot of listeners our age and beyond who went through these things with school, and kind of, it was a bit of a making or breaking situation, wasn't it? And I think that how do we help people to start to look at, I think the whole point of this is that if you label yourself as an angry person, or if you label yourself as an anxious person or a depressed person, it's not quite accurate, is it? So we then assign these labels to ourselves, and we assign these labels based on how we've grown up, the influences that we've had, such as school. I'm not sporty, I'm not this. I swear to God, sport and PE was an absolute detrimental part of my life, how it was set up, how the fact that I didn't go on to enjoy exercise, that I ended up then, in different situations with food and things over the years, because exercise wasn't enjoyable. What they did was they made sure that the people who were really good at sports excelled, that they built them up, and you're just their loser team. Like I was literally the last to be picked all the time. I'd probably get really angry and then storm off and not be in the team anyway. Yeah. But then, stuff like that does not do good for people's self-esteem, does it?
No, it doesn't.
So I wonder, how do we help listeners to start to kind of unpick parts of their personality and say, is this actually me? Does this actually belong to me? Or is this something else? Or is this a part of me that I'd like to work on? But not see ourselves as that whole person as angry, or that whole person as like flawed, or I'm not good enough, and like you say, people saying you'll amount to nothing. I wonder, in fact, I know there'll be thousands and thousands of people listening to this who've been given some sort of advice by a teacher that is not helpful, but has stuck with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, because in that moment it connects with the fear. It connects with all the things you believe about yourself anyway, because it's what's being bred into you. And plus, when you're riddled with humiliation, like you're going to do anything you can to survive in that moment, i.e. get angry, i.e. freeze, i.e. cry, you know what I mean? And those parts then become a dominant part of who you are, and you have to live to survive. So therefore you create all of these concepts about yourself, all of these different beliefs about yourself. And I think there are situations as well where in those moments where you think, or unconsciously, you don't think, you unconsciously think, I'm going to make sure that never happens to me again. So what you do then is you create all these like maladaptive, unhelpful ways of being just to avoid that part of yourself and make sure it never happens again. And by that, it then is either you become angry and you do as soon as the atmosphere changes in any way, shape or form, you are ready to defend. Or you're anxious and you sit there and you constantly future negative think and you imagine all of these scenarios that are probably never ever going to happen. And then you start thinking, well, if that happens, I'll do this, this, this and this, as if you're going to be prepared, because you're never going to be. When something happens, you're never prepared for it, but you think you're going to be. And then what you start to do then is you start to wire all of those neural pathways in your brain so they become the most dominant part of your brain, and therefore you then think that is you, this is who I am. It is not. It absolutely is not. And you know, you're not an angry person, you're not an anxious person. They are a part of you at the moment, because that's what's being wired together mostly. We hear this all the time, neurons that fire together, wire together.
Oh, I like
What
it.
you think grows. I used to always joke and say what you think grows, and I knew I had a big nose, so we used to think, do not think about that nose, Queen. We can't afford for that to get any bigger. Jokes.
Love it.
But yeah, it is, you know, you can rewire your brain, you can rewire these things, but you've got to be able to go there. You've got to have a space to see what is underneath it.
Well, and there's a fundamental issue here. Here I go. It's episode 3 here. Emma and her issues. Is that, okay, so I just want to break this down. So shame, and obviously the idea that we're doing something wrong or that something's not quite right. Actually, we've spoke about it before. It's quite socially constructed, isn't it? So as a society, that's the idea that we create our own misery through our own actions, through our own judgments, through the way that we see the world. So if we live in a world where people are really judgmental, meaning like, you know, if you're not allowed to be gay or you're not allowed this or you're not allowed that, don't be too bold, don't be this, don't be too successful, just be humble. The more of those kind of statements that we have and the more we have that around us, the more we will subscribe to it and create this misery. And what we have to realise is that shame is then reacting often to the judgments of other people or society. Now, when we break that down and go, actually, I don't care what other people say about that. This is me, and lots of things are okay. So I'm just going to be really clear, right? There's a couple of things that aren't okay that you should be ashamed of. And I'm not going to name them, but people know what they are. Well, one of them is murder, obviously, and then probably that's subjective. But at the end of the day, there's a list of things that are just not acceptable, but the rest's bullshit. Actually, you shouldn't have your hair like that, you shouldn't do this. And the more we kind of like subscribe and listen to people, the more shame that we get.
Absolutely. Do you know what I am? When I was like younger, or like teen years, you know, when you start to like, you know, find all the things that you like and stuff. You know what I'm like about shoes. I've got like a proper shoe thing where I just love shoes. They never let me down, regardless of how big my waist goes. The shoes are still going to fit.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like
they're consistent. They're consistent in the life.
Got a good relationship with shoes, as my shoe wardrobe will tell you. But I remember going shopping with someone close to me, and and they were like, oh, let's go here. And I was like, I'm not going there. Oh, I'm not getting my shoes from there. And I remember them going, you're such a snob. Right? And I was like, oh, am I a snob? Oh my goodness. So I then used to feel embarrassed about wanting nice things. I've
seen you do that actually.
Yeah, again, well, this is going on to something. About wanting nice things. And if ever someone would say, oh, that's nice, I go, oh, it was only from
the downplay, you know, downplay. Because I bet loads of people do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, this old thing.
Yeah. So as you know, the past couple of years, I got myself like a nice car.
Look, you see, you can't even say it now.
Honestly, I have, like, there's a part of me that like, cringe for yourself, but why? Got myself a nice car, and oh my goodness, you know, like the dream of driving a nice car was not the reality, because I I just was cringing.
Yeah.
But equally, when I was on my own and there was no one around, I was like, oh, this is so nice and I'm so pleased with it. But you know, if like, say, a family member or someone came, oh, you can't, I want to go around to swallow me up.
Yeah.
And I had to do so much work around that. And equally, I go to the gym like frequently now. And because of that, I invested in some decent leggings as well. And a couple of people were saying, this was all around the same time, and a couple of people say to me, oh, your leggings are lovely, where'd you get them from? And
Car and your leggings. My leggings are from
how
Jaguar.
dare I buy a pair of leggings? And I was like, sorry, Betty. Because they're a bit more expensive than the Matalan, let's just say. But like, I was cringing and I thought, why am I not celebrating myself?
Yeah. So you're cringing, but that is shame.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
So that's
absolutely.
like...
And it was chronic. It was it really physically made me cringe. It wasn't just like me mind, you know what I mean? It was mind and body.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love that you use that example because, that's what I remember as well. You being really quite embarrassed about your new car, which we're all going. And obviously everyone on this podcast knows Kerry, and Kerry's like, wow, amazing. And you're like, stop. And it's like, and actually, why is that? And that is society, isn't it? That's kind of how you're made to believe, to kind of be humble, take it in. And I guess there is a difference. I suppose, it would be remiss of me to not say there's a difference if someone's boasting or all about the kind of like what's it called when you just want stuff,
like the materialistic
stuff. There is something around that, but not from a judgmental space. It's just that usually if there's an obsession with material stuff, it's a way to distract. But I think there's a line in between, isn't it, that when we work hard and we do the things that we do, and we are entitled to have something nice that we enjoy. Interesting that it brings up that shame of them kind of, who does she think she is, sort of thing.
I'm always driving. I wanted to just drive because I'm always in the car. But it is. It's really hard. And then what I had to go and reflect on around that was I had to unpick it all. I had to go back and think all these comments that have been said to me over time because for different reasons, because of what society and your environment wants to keep you cocooned in where you are unconsciously. You know what I mean? People can be rooting for you, but it's safe. If someone steps out the comfort zone, oh my God, I might want that too, and I'm not capable of getting that, so therefore let's keep that person in there. Or if I'm driving and I make a mistake, it's going to be, oh, look at her in that car. That's what people do, and you hear people say it.
Oh
it's
God, you've just reminded me. I do that to someone who's got a big car, and I go, you in your fucking massive car.
Mine's not the other one. Yeah, okay. Sorry, it was.
No, but like really not. And it's like, where is that coming from? Like that little. But it's more. Actually, that's funny because they do park in awkward places, and I do think stop the parking there.
Yeah.
However, you're so right, and I think that understanding our mindset, understanding the people around us, and things like that. And I speak to many clients who have, it depends on your political background as well. So people will use politics to keep themselves in a space, that they say, I come from this, therefore I align to this, so therefore I am this, and I don't want more. And it's like a dirty word to say that you want a quality of life. But, looking at the way that the economy goes and the way that everything is, I think that we have to move forward, don't we, with our mindset. And we have to stop humiliating people and making people feel ashamed for wanting something better or wanting something better with their life. And I'm not talking about materialistic stuff. I'm talking about actually, what do you want? If you want to do better, or you want to feel better, or you don't want to do that anymore with that particular person, then we should be embracing that, shouldn't we? Because we make people feel ashamed. I mean, even take alcohol. Like, that I gave up drinking for 9 months because I've not stopped going on about it since I did it years ago. However, it was one of the most life-changing things that I ever did. And it's really interesting to me how when people talk about those journeys, when they, abstain from things for a little bit, just how much it affects other people and how they shame you for not drinking or they shame you for not, there'll be people who are listening who take drugs who then often get shamed into taking them because they're like, because of the company that they keep. And it's so amazing to me how the human will often want other humans to kind of stay in that pack that you spoke about and not to kind of want to be better or do better for yourself. I'm not saying I'm not saying something's better than the other, but what do you think yourself, right?
And I think also, talking about this, that for a lot of people there is also a journey to be had before you can even contemplate the thought of being better. This has been a huge long-winded process for me to get to a point to even think, dare I want more? Dare I push myself there. I put myself out there for fear of being ridiculed. You know, there's a huge journey. Am I even capable of more? You know, all of those things because of what we're talking about. There are so many angles to this, isn't there? Where some people are in a place where they don't believe that they can get more or are worth more because of shame. You know, and I think, and I probably will talk about this on different levels and different, you know, ways. But I think from childhood, you know, based off all the things we spoke about today around hiding parts of ourselves and shame and things like that, what we then do is we develop, as you know, a self-concept, a voice inside of us that kind of keeps us in check or doesn't, you know, in some way. And I call mine my critical voice. That's my part. And my critical voice was my most dominant voice for a long, long time. Yeah. Used to tell me everything I wasn't. It used to make me look at worst case scenario. It used to make sure I stayed in my place, and my place was always less than, you know. And I think what we need to do is we need to listen to that voice, because everybody's got one. You know, we need to listen to what it's telling us, because a lot of the time some of the things it's saying doesn't actually belong to us. A lot of what it's saying, most of what it's saying, doesn't belong to us.
And it's trying to keep us safe.
Yes.
But often it's trying to keep a different part of us safe that's no longer needed.
Yeah.
You know, so when you talk to clients about their inner child, a lot of people go, oh, God. But it's so true, isn't it? Often the self-critic is actually talking to a different part of us that is no longer in the here and now. So we have to kind of gently work with that part to say, look, thanks for the warning. I'm all right. Actually, I'm now a 44-year-old woman who does X, Y, and Z. I've got this. But, you know, but the shame and stuff, it's trying to protect, isn't it? And it doesn't make any sense to try and get rid of it and then do the opposite. I think what you're saying there is that we have to listen. We have to understand what it's saying, and then we unpick it and move forward with it and kind of go, do we need this anymore? Is this a good message for me to be receiving or listening to?
Exactly. And that's what I talk about when I say a lot about living intentionally, because we can live mindlessly, can't we? Where we just allow ourselves to automatically go to these habits of being reactive, suppressing, and just doing all these things that we do on a day-to-day basis. Or we can react and then reflect, or we can suppress and then reflect. You know what I mean? And I think there's almost like a part of people's processes that maybe needs to be rewired in some way to look internally. I was talking to someone in a therapeutic setting recently, and they were saying, when this happens in this setting, I almost feel like a child. And I said, how old are you?
Yeah.
And they were just baffled. What do you mean? Well, I'm 40. And I was like, no, in that moment, how old are you?
That's right, yeah.
And then we went deep. There was so many things. We spoke about the inner child. We spoke about how old that child was.
Yeah.
There's so much work, because usually when these situations happen, i.e. what we've been talking about in school, at that age usually is where that part of our development gets stunted. It gets suppressed, and it doesn't go any further than that. So a lot of the time what we're doing is we're reacting in a moment, i.e. in a garage, when someone shames us over the tannoy. You're not really reacting in that moment of what
that was
she's
the child
saying.
me
You're
going.
reacting from someone who's pretended to faint in a toilet cubicle to the void. And if you don't know what I'm on about, that was episode 2.
You need to listen
to that.
You need to listen back. No, it's so true, isn't it? And I think, you know, when families, and you know that one of my areas is family therapy, what we don't really understand is that we have what's called family scripts, and a family script is just that. It's something that's passed down. It's something that we accept as true. So it's the stories that are passed down through families and generations that then become our reality. And often we're working from family scripts of other people's shame and difficulty. So, for example, you know, I'll speak to people who's like, you know, got money issues or money problems going on, but then 2 generations before there was poverty or shame, and actually it comes from there, and what messages those parents and grandparents pass on in their own right because of their own experiences, but don't belong in the here and now. They don't belong in 2024, but we're still holding them because it's a script. You know, life is miserable, or we should fear people, talking is dangerous, whatever that is. But just going back to what you said before, I just want to help listeners to kind of, and I want to just land that plane, as Heather Meek would say, is that, you know, when you're having a thought or a feeling and you feel something like I feel shame or I feel difficulty, and you ask, you know, you asked before, how old are you? It's really helpful, listeners, if you then say to yourself, how old do I feel in this moment? So when it's happening for you, one of the ways for you to grow and change is for you to do that work in that moment. Go, hang on a sec. I'm just going to give myself a minute and I'm going to ask myself this question. Why, when I feel like this right now, what age do I feel? And actually see if you can kind of look at that and see if something comes up for you, because often it will.
Yes.
And it sounds a bit funny talking to yourself. You don't actually have to say it out loud, but you can do. But actually, that is personal development. That is becoming more self-aware. And if you kind of sit there and go, no, I still feel like a 44-year-old or I still feel like a 60-year-old or whatever, that's fair enough. But when we talk about, on these podcasts, people often say, like, you're talking like this, but then what advice can you give people? And I think you've hit the nail on the head about something we both do in our practices with our clients. And actually, that's a skill people can learn to do themselves.
Yes.
Pausing, checking it out, thinking and asking yourself the question, how old do I feel right now in this moment when this is happening is a great tool, isn't it?
It really is, because usually when those situations happened, when we were younger, whatever age we were, in that moment when we feel that chronic shame and humiliation, we then learn how to abandon ourselves, because that moment isn't facilitating whatever our need is in that moment. There's no contact or with emotion or body sensations. So what we do is we leave our body, we get off and abandon ourselves, and we shut down whatever we can, and we survive. And that part of yourself, what you're continuously doing throughout your life, is abandoning it. You are abandoning yourself. Every time you react, suppress, do all of these things, you're abandoning yourself. Now, it's okay that we do that, but there needs to be another point, which is what we're talking about, where you reflect on it and you don't abandon it. You show up for yourself. When you go through some difficulties, when you go through certain stresses, when you feel humiliated, don't, with your critical voice or that part of yourself that tells you all that you're not, you don't have to believe that. Where is your care for yourself? Where is your compassion and empathy for yourself? Because that should be met, because that's what it should have been met with all those years ago. If you're the last person to be picked on sports day, have some empathy for that person. That's challenging to feel as a young person. If you're being, why on earth as a teacher would you make someone stand up in the class so you can tell them they're not going to amount to nothing? How humiliating, shame on you, And if that's happened, things like that have happened to you, you need to go there for yourself emotionally, unpick it with compassion and empathy for yourself, because how rubbish is that?
Because in all fairness to the dickhead teachers, I'm pretty sure most of them would never have wanted people to feel that way, but they were humans as well, so their responses are always like people now. Their responses are always coming from their own place, and we understand emotions more now, don't we?
We do.
Back then it was just like, we were still coming out of that era of children are seen and not heard, right? And I think that has played a big part now as we have our own children, and actually their voice is really powerful and we empower their voices. Actually, I think there's a lot that's changing for the better. But I want to bring us to language, and I speak about language all the time because it is so important. Not just the language that you say outwardly, but the language that you're using internally, the language that you're using for yourself. Now, a Reiki healer, a lady who does, tarot as well, she told me off because I typed something like a typo and I was like, oh, it's my big fat fingers. And I used to say I had sausage fingers. And I can't not say that, because sometimes when I do mistype, I do think, fucking hell, big fat fingers, just stop it. But she was like, that's an insult to yourself. But she's right in many ways. But I have a sense of humour, so I also want to laugh at certain things. But I think our language is everything. If we are talking in certain ways, then the mind believes it what we tell it, right? And like you say, we can take or leave it, but if we don't, and I think that we have to adjust our language, and we have to kind of become self-aware with the language that we're using as well around how we relate to ourselves and others, and because language is really shaming. I've seen some things that parents have said to children and I just can't believe it. Like, I was just like, oh wow, that's shameful language. And actually we have to understand what shameful language is and how that kind of a person or a child might internalize that, but we're often not taught that, so it's not surprising that we will say or do certain things I don't know about you, but with my children, sometimes I say something and I go, oh God, that was shaming. And it's the idea that you're aware that it's happened and how you fix that, rather than just blurting out stuff and, you know, humiliating children, because they are our next generation as well.
They are. And it's okay to say, I'm sorry, do you know what,
Yes.
actually, this is what I meant. I just
Yeah.
struggled to control my own emotions in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, that's really great. That's, you know, we're not perfect, and we're not bringing up perfect people either, you know. And we don't want perfection, because everyone's idea of perfection is completely different.
Yeah.
And if you get what your idea of perfection is, you realise it's shite.
Yeah.
Didn't mean anything in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think, I completely hear you, because what your unconscious mind and what your deep-rooted values and beliefs about yourself are is what your unconscious continuously tries to prove to you that it's true on a daily basis. If you believe deep down you are less than, daily you're going to get proven to that you're less than. Now and then you might not, but most of the time you're going to get, you know, if you see yourself as an angry person, you're going to notice more of the things that are going to make you angry. You know what I mean? You're going to be drawn to it because that's what your brain's wired to do, you know. And I think the language that we use is definitely really important. Same as you, you know, there's certain things that you know you can't change about yourself, i.e., you know, me being, and I joke and say I'm a lanky laddie, but it used to be in a disrespectful way, but now I've built a relationship with it, and I use it as a way to humour myself, because I'm never going to be short, so I need to deal with it, don't I? And humour's a great way of coping with it. You know, there's certain things like that, but actually if I'm like, and also, you know, after children, let's just say pulling knickers was essential. And I either could sit there and berate myself in the mirror, or buzz off myself and be like, well, hey, Homer Simpson, you know what I mean? And just like have a laugh at myself. So there are certain things where you've got to just like crack on.
Because
you know,
I always think of that thing of, do you know, have you seen Dodgeball? And Adam Sandler, is it Adam Sandler and all of that? There's a cast in it, but then at the end he always goes like, and he sits eating the chicken legs going, fucking Chuck Norris. And like I always go, when, you know, like he's crying over food and stuff like that, and then he calls himself this derogatory, it's derogatory, but it's quite funny, so I get what you're saying. But
then the thing is that if I say I am not, I can't, and I'm using that all the time, well, this is just the way I am. No, have a word with yourself. No, it's not, and yet you can. And don't find a problem to every solution. Find a solution to every problem. You know what I mean? So there you go.
I think that's what's really powerful about coaching, though. So why I enjoy coaching so much is that people come and they talk in different kind of languages and they say different things, but I can see so much potential, and I can just think, if we just unpick that word and we do that, I know that we can resolve this, and I love it. It's absolutely amazing for that. And when someone comes to me and says, oh, I'm just an angry person, oh my God, I can't wait to work with that, because I'm just like, okay, well, that's the self-concept and the idea that you've got of yourself, but by the time you finish with me, that won't be
you won't be believing that.
Understand. Yeah, exactly.
If someone comes to me saying, you know, I'm just not good enough and I'm not capable, I'm like, right, let me I'll show you, because you are. And do you know what I find as well? There are lots of people who feel that because they're not around the right people and they don't have the right environment, they feel that they're not likeable. They feel that they're not worthy of having good friendships. And the amount of people I work with who feel that way, and I've said to a few people, I've said, you know, if this were in our relationship, like the professional relationship, I would love you in my life. I think you're awesome. And there are so many amazing people out there, and we get to see the real vulnerable side of people. So we're privileged in that perspective. You know, we get to see them when the defences are down and the real rawness of what makes them who they are. But I think we're so privileged to be in this profession and in this setting, because there are so many gorgeous people out there that don't feel that they're gorgeous, don't feel that they're worth any, don't like themselves, therefore not showing their true selves. And I think we're afraid to like shine, we're afraid to stand out because of shame, because of oh no, you know, my vulnerable side will come out here and I might get ridiculed. Oh my God, work through that, pals. Let that do one. Nearly knocked myself out because I'm so dramatic. Do one, because I guarantee you, the closer you get to your authentic self, the more you will shine from the inside out. Let
definitely.
it. Don't be afraid.
And you know, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I just want to bring up, it was your birthday recently, you had a big party, and it was a night out, and I just really wasn't myself that day. And the thing is I came away from that, so I was exhausted. I was exhausted before I came, and I ended up, as you know, falling asleep. in one of the bunk
Like a
beds.
naughty dog,
yes,
weren't you?
yes, I was. And there was a massive part of me that straight away felt like, oh, people have listened to the podcast, they're going to think, what a boring bitch she is. You were going to feel let down by the fact that I hadn't rocked up and been like myself. And it's all that kind of like feeling bad on yourself and going, oh, and and I worked through it, but then you were really good because you were like, listen, absolutely cool, fine. And it was just one of them things, wasn't it? But actually, if you think about that, how many people in that scenario would feel so bad for days on end, feel like they've let people down. But ultimately, if I had been 100%, then I would have been there laughing, waving, doing whatever. But also, if people thought I was boring or I wasn't what they'd heard on the podcast, then also not my problem. Like, I'm not there to kind of prove something. I was there to be, and I'm sure they absolutely didn't. But what I'm talking about is your own mind and your own processing, where I was worrying, thinking people are going to be like, oh my God, she's like this or like that. And I just thought, well, it is kind of what it is. And I'm tired and exhausted and this has happened. And I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because once you accept and say, well, I'm not there to please other people and I'm not there to, Sarah Baker's having a 40th and she's got so many friends that, I'm still an important one of those friends. But if I nod off, she's still cracking on with her 40th.
I'm still doing forward rolls on the dance floor.
Exactly that. But there are friends who in the past aren't like that, who would have been, I'm not talking to you, I'm really disappointed, shameful language. When we'd say to people, oh, that's one of my pet hates, I'm disappointed in you. Oh, fuck off.
Oh,
I don't care whether you're disappointed. Yeah.
Not going to share that then.
No, but isn't it? It's like that kind of, I'm disappointed in you, and
How
it's happened to me.
I'm
and
not
I'm
here
like,
to perform for you, hon.
yeah, exactly. And years ago I would have taken it on, whereas now there's nobody who can tell me off. Like I've got a boss, and even they don't tell me off because actually you're an adult. So even if I did the worst thing in the world, so it's like kind of get rid of those experiences of shame as well. Like start to go, well, if I did something bad, I always know that I would have good intentions and I would deal with the bad thing, but I'm not going to shame myself into making myself feel like dog shit.
I have a lovely response, if people was to say something like that, really patronisingly say, I'm really sorry you feel that way.
Do you? I go, see, I'm dead aggressive. I'm like,
really
well, I'm not your fucking kid.
You just want to fight them.
I would just be like, well, I'm not your fucking kid, so don't say disappointed to me.
No, I like give like a look back and go, oh,
Do you?
yeah. Oh, really sorry you feel that way. Or if I sense someone's being a certain way, I go, you okay, hon?
I'm sorry, but I can't believe that anybody would ever be disappointed in you. Like, that really blows my mind.
I think you don't have a word with my fella. I guarantee there's a long conversation to be had there.
Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places when I see you as like this holy grail, don't I? I'm just like, Sarah Baker can do no wrong.
I think Emma thinks I can walk on water.
I do. I actually do, with your lovely feet.
I'll give you the piggyback. Hey, do you know what? That's probably why I like shoes, because they're not that bad, are they?
No, they're nice. You've got nice feet, considering.
Do you know what's weird as well? I don't know if I've mentioned this, but like my height, I do not know how I balance. I'm only a 5 or a 6.
There's a book, isn't there? The Tall Policeman with the little feet. I forget what it's called. That's you.
Neither.
But talking of feet, this is the thing. My mum and dad did taekwondo for years, and they got us into taekwondo when we were younger, right? Yeah. And we were laughing about this the other week because I hated it, right? But do you know why I hated it?
Why?
Because you'd have to get your feet out.
Oh, yeah,
and I was ashamed of my feet. Well, but I mean, their feet. They're
nice.
Feet.
They're not bad.
But like when I was younger, I was ashamed of feet. Ashamed of feet, ashamed of knees. I mean, imagine that. Ashamed of feet and knees.
I've heard of feet, but not knees. My nan used to always, Nanny Sal, she was called the queen of where she lived. She's so prim and proper. And she used to always say, oh, God, I'd rather you showed me your bare ass than your bare feet. Go and get your stockings on.
That's so funny. The little things, isn't it? Little things. Yeah. So I guess we're kind of coming to a bit of a close on today's episode. And I suppose what we're really trying to do today is highlight the idea of shame, the fact that it can be really internal, the fact that sometimes it's passed down from generations and we don't actually know. And we take them with us as scripts, and we take them with us as kind of life truths, if you will. And actually they're not. So the job that we're saying to people really is to work with us in terms of personal development and self-awareness on these podcasts to kind of start looking inward a little bit. You know, I'm not expecting you to go out and start paying hundreds for a coach or, you know, all of that. But I do think if you want your life to improve, you've got to understand a little bit more about what's really going on that's not in your awareness, right?
I agree. Absolutely that.
And we're here to support you with that.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're helping.
Yeah. I that's definitely the hope, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
we've got our Instagram and there's some Facebook pages and stuff. So try and follow us. Come and have a chat with us if you need to. You know, we're not here in terms of crisis because we're not going to immediately get back to people, but get in touch. Let's chat.
Let's hear from you, and let's hear out, you know, if there's something in particular you want us to discuss on the podcast, then let us know.
Idea.
I mean, we are not short of content, as you would imagine, because we're a pair of gobshites, but we are, we love it. And the thing is that really all of this, what for me, it's not about, I did say my accent then. It's not about preaching. It's about, what I wanted when I became a therapist and when I became a coach, and now this is that I did things the long way. I don't know about you, Sarah, but if someone would have just said to me, have you thought of this, or have you read this book, or have you done that, then I feel like my life would have been a lot easier. And I want people to not rush through this, but I want them really to know that they don't have to wait years and years and years to be proactive in creating change for like a better life. Because if you've got to sit in this life for the next 40, 50, 60 years, God, you're going to better make it good.
Yeah, one of the most important things someone said to me was my supervisor, Pat, and she said, you do know you can create a life you love, don't you? I was like, what? You can't, can you? She was like, yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. Wow. You
just got to understand it first, haven't you? So there's no point saying, oh, I don't love this life, but then not knowing what actually you would love, because then what we have is lots of mindset barriers that stop us exploring what we love. And that's what I like about coaching. Sometimes people come and they say, I don't know what I want, and we work through that, and we really kind of go, you know what? Actually, let's think bigger. Let's stop our mindset. How do we get from island A to island B? Yeah. And I'll be your boat in the middle for when you want to turn back and it's too much. Do you know what I mean?
And I'll give you a piggyback because I can walk on water.
Yes, I love that. And that is a wrap.
Yeah, it is. Take care.
See you next time.
Bye.